With the price of AE-1s and other film cameras these days, beginners may be discouraged from trying film entirely, but don't fear, because today we're talking about the cheapest Canon FD and AE-1 program alternative. This is the Canon T-50, an excellent alternative to the AE-1 and other FD film cameras. Hi, this is Analog Noise, and this video is my in-depth review of the Canon T-50, a perfect beginner's SLR camera and perhaps the cheapest Canon FD camera available today. The Canon T-50 was introduced in 1983 and kicked off Canon's new T-series. This was to follow the A-series consisting of the A1, the AV1 and the AE-1. The Canon T-series consisted of the T60, T70, T90 and of course the T50. The T50 is an extremely simple camera. It has a metal shutter that is capable of 1/1000th of a second, program mode, a self-timer, a battery check, the ability to set your own ISO, and that's it. This camera has automatic winding, so you won't have to be doing any of that. And it also doesn't let you choose your aperture or your shutter. This is all controlled by the T50's onboard computer. Bar letting you choose your own focus and ISO, the T50 controls every other aspect of the photo and doesn't let you tweak anything about it, except for the ISO. This is both the Canon T50's greatest strength and its greatest weakness. That being said, if you're just starting out, having a simple camera isn't a bad thing, and the only difference between the T50 and the A-series is the lack of shutter and aperture control. You will still have to learn how to manually focus, and this is a gateway into learning other aspects of photography. The main thing we have to accept with FD cameras and other SLRs is that the photo will always look the same regardless of what you took it on. As long as I take my photo with the same film and the same lens attached to the AE1 or the T50, it won't make a difference, because these cameras all shoot with the same lens onto the same film, and there's nothing internal in the camera body except for the exposure that makes it any different in the end result. Please don't think you need a specific camera. I know a lot of people hype up the AE1 and the A1, but the truth is these cameras all take the same photos and it doesn't really matter what you have. As long as you have a good lens, you're exposing properly, and you have film in the camera, the photos will always look the same. If you just want to start shooting film, please consider the T50. It's extremely light, it's extremely cheap, and you won't feel bad about buying a new camera when you've outgrown it and you want to try more manual photography or you want something a bit better. I mainly use my FD cameras with the following lenses: the 50mm f1.4, the 28mm f2.8, the 35-70 f2.8 to 3.5, and the 70-210 f4. I think these lenses are all great in their own ways, and it's 100% personal preference which focal length you end up choosing. This will be a quick top down. As I've already said, it's a pretty straightforward operation here. Taking us to the top of the camera, we have our shutter button, mode operation, and manual rewind. So we have our program mode, self-timer, lock, and if you slide into here, you have a battery check indicator. As you may have already noticed, the T50 has a rewind. This means the T50 can wind forward with its motor, but it can't wind backwards. So when you want to rewind the film, you simply click that button at the bottom, pull your knob up, and rewind. The T50 is dumb, but it's not that dumb. So you can't outsmart it and try to shoot in aperture priority mode. If the T50 knows that you've taken it off A, it's simply going to shoot at a fixed speed. I believe this to be 1/30th or 1/60th. So if you want your photo to expose properly, you have to make sure it's in A and program. On the side of the camera, you can see we have an accessory port. This is another thing the T50 lacks. It does not have a threaded cable release. This is how you would normally do a cable release on the T50, but this also allows for other accessories. I believe you can get a timed cable release and a long distance one. This doesn't completely rule out the T50 from night photography. However, if you manage to find this cable, you can still use it as a traditional cable release, and you can also use the self-timer with the inbuilt computer being capable of producing some long exposures by itself. The back of the camera does not have a film reminder window or a clear window to see through to the film, so it's important you note down or have a decent memory good enough to be able to remember what film you have in here. Opening up the T-50 with the lever here, you will be able to see the Canon's automatic winder and its metal shutter curtain. Another great thing I love about the T-50 is it runs on two batteries that humans actually use, that being AA's. These batteries seem to last a long time, and I've never changed them in the time that I've used the Canon T-50. The downside of this little flap here for the battery door is that it's made out of the cheapest materials possibly ever invented, and the slightest wrong gust of wind can break this off. It is not uncommon to see T-50s and other plastic SLR cameras with their battery doors snapped off. It's not the end of the world. You can tape it and put some foil to bridge the gap between the two batteries, closing the circuit and making the camera run. Here is a sample of the Canon T-50's shutter sound.
Doctor, are you sure it's on? I can't hear a thing.
It's whisper quiet!
As you can see, it's not exactly subtle. There is no way to prevent the T-50 from winding the film straight away. This prevents double exposures, and it is also quite annoying when you want to take a photo discreetly or quietly, as this motor wind will always happen after firing the shutter. Some cameras, not the T-50, allow you to hold down the button, and when that button is released the motor winds. This lets you take the photo and take the camera away and discreetly wind the film. But holding down the button on the T-50 turns on the continuous burst. This brings us to the most damning point of the T-50, and that is reliability. Sadly, the T-50 lets down the team in this category. Now, as you've already realized, I do have 3 T-50s. You may be wondering why this is. Please take a guess how many T-50s you believe actually work. Well, the answer is 1. These cameras aren't exactly reliable, and there's a lot of things that can go wrong in them. There's a ton of things that can explode in these guys, and honestly, it's the same story with any early electronic camera. The winding motor is likely to fail, the LED lights in the viewfinder can die, making it impossible to know what your exposure will be. The battery door, as I've already said, is made out of cardboard, and the amount I've seen snapped off is actually ridiculous. The sad part about these cameras and its future is that the T-50 is so cheap, it's just not worth fixing. The price of repairing a camera that's broken can cost from $100 to $300 for anything, and for what these cameras cost, you're better off just throwing it out and buying a new one. The main thing to take away here is just look carefully at the listing photos. Make sure if you're buying this from a private seller that they've confirmed it's working. It's not hard to do with these cameras, they just take AA's, and if they don't want to test it for you, that person is probably not worth your time and money. These cameras are cheap, and that is for a reason, this being reliability. If you want a camera that's going to last you forever, buy something more mechanical, but if you just want to use something now until you upgrade to something better later, the T-50 is a great stepping point. The T-50 was a pretty simple camera, and as a result, not a lot of accessories were made for it. The main one you'll see with these cameras is the 244T flash. This is great, it's extremely simple. The flash has no manual controls apart from a 100 and 400 ISO, so keep in mind you probably shouldn't be shooting 200, although the end result won't look that much different. These flashes work great with the T-50, they were designed for it, and they work fully automatically. You don't have to change anything at all. Something else to look out for is the 277T. Any of these Canon flashes ending in the letter T will work for the T-50 and any other T-series camera. They also work for the A series and some of the F series cameras. As well as this, I also have Peak Design anchor links on all of my cameras, and this just allows me to have a quickly attaching strap that can be taken on and off at any time, and makes it very convenient if you have multiple cameras, because I can just take my straps off from whatever I want and put it on any of my other cameras with little to no hassle. As for alternatives, like I said, every Canon FD camera is likely to take the exact same photo if you're using the same lens and film between them. So of course there are any cameras in the A series like the AE-1, the A1, the AV1, they all take great photos. There's the T series cameras, the T70, the T90 and the T60 can also be had for very cheap, and they do a little bit more than the T50 does. There's also the Canon F series And if you don't want a Canon, there are plenty of other cheap SLRs available if you just search online, or if you go on eBay and type in 35mm SLR, sort from low to high, I'm sure you'll come across a lot of cheap cameras. Thanks for watching my review on the Canon T-50. I hope this video has been insightful for you and helped you make an informative decision. If you have any feedback that's either good or negative, please let me know in the comments. And if you like the video, please give it a like. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day.